So from time to time, like we would always say, you need to call your spouse and ask, how are you doing? How are you? Very important. Because sometimes when people go on and on and on, they don't even realize that they need to check on each other.
Yes.
Hi there.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. I am Chidi Akunna.
And I am Victor Akunna.
Today we have decided to share 4 tips you must consider if you're moving your family to a new country. As persons who work in the family life industry, it is heartbreaking for us when we see marriages torn apart, children taken from their parents. Okay, and this is because they were not exposed to certain information. And we hope that this helps as many families as possible. Okay, and the first tip we'll be sharing with you today is clarify your purpose.
Absolutely.
You need to be asking, why are we relocating? Why do we have to do this as a family? What's the benefit for us as a family?
Because one key thing about knowing why is that it helps you stay in there when things are not working out.
That's right.
Because sometimes when we forget the reason why we're doing something, it's like when you forget the purpose, the vision, when someone say that without vision, people cast off restraint. Once you forget the reason why you're doing something, there is a possibility that everybody start doing their own thing. Everybody start operating their own agenda. And that's why you see some people, after they relocate, they forget why they relocated in the first place. And then their children are doing their own thing, the husband is doing their own thing. At the end of the day, you're wondering, it was better off you were where you were coming from, rather than come here and, destroy your whole family. Another key thing is this: it's not enough to know why you are relocating. It's enough to constantly communicate. Because vision or purpose leaks. What do I mean by that? People forget why they are doing something. So once in a while, have regular, communication with your spouse. This is why we are doing this.
Call family meetings. Yes.
Have conversation with your children. This is why we are doing this. This is who we are. Don't let the new environment swallow you up. This is who we are. This is why we are doing this. This is where we are going to. Constantly communicate that, especially as a leader, and model it. It's not enough to say something. Your behavior must model it, because once you have a vision, it's going to constrain you. There are places you don't go, there are things you don't do because of what, there are expenses you don't make because of what you want to do. So whatever you're telling them, you make those sacrifices as well. As a wife, as a husband, as a dad, as a mother, make those sacrifices for those children. All right, so, and that's one key thing. Not just enough to have the purpose, to clarify, communicate it.
Yes. Okay, and the second point is prioritize your marriage.
Absolutely.
Prioritize your marriage. I don't know, I can't say this better, okay? But it is heartbreaking when people decide, okay, we're now in a new environment, and they throw themselves into their jobs. Yes, there's that thing for us to want to survive.
Absolutely.
Okay, survival instinct. It kicks in when you're there. And especially as a parent, you just want to see that your children are comfortable.
Absolutely.
So whatever it would take to make your family to put your family in a good place, you want to do it. But do not forget your marriage.
Absolutely.
It is very important.
Very important.
So from time to time, like we would always say, you need to call your spouse and ask, how are you doing? How are you? Very important. Because sometimes when people go on and on and on, they don't even realize that they need to check on each other.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes spouses get shocked when they say, the other committed suicide. But that's because he or she probably took on so much, or was so consumed in whatever was bugging his or her mind at the time, and the other did not realize, under my roof I am losing my spouse.
Absolutely.
So you need to check up on each other.
So
prioritize your marriage.
So don't take it for granted that she is strong or he is strong. Find out how are they doing. Check out their mental health.
Yes.
Because see, moving to a new environment is not always very colorful the way people paint it. There are unexpected things. There are things that you do not plan for. There are things that you may not expect that will pop up that you have to deal with. You might not get the kind of job you want to get. So there are many things that can make people's heart go faint. So prioritize your marriage, and then you might be required to work longer hours for so little sometimes. So you see people who just working back to back, they don't have time to really look and nurture each other. And one thing especially when you are moving to a new environment where you don't have very strong ties. One thing you don't want to lose is the connection of the woman or the man that you're on this journey with.
That's right.
I'm telling you, it can make everything begin to nosedive from there. So you see some people after they've traveled, and then you're wondering, the husband and the wife, they just started fighting, and you're wondering, what is all this? So one key thing you don't want to lose is the support of your spouse.
Yes, it's sad that when the purpose is finally achieved, you look back and your spouse is no longer there. It is possible that you're probably separated or even divorced. And in some cases where that is not the case, there's no emotional connection between you both. So yeah, that's really sad. The third tip we'll be talking about today is pay attention to your children. And to that I would ask, where are your children? Okay, sometimes yes, social services are involved when things get so complicated. Parents don't have time to care for these children, or both parents are at work and children are left on their own. You know, some people who relocate to the Western world sometimes do not realize that at that point the children are the governments, not their parents anymore.
Absolutely.
So the government would interfere. You cannot just leave your child or your children on their own until they are a certain age. Okay, so when parents don't realize this and they leave the children, something happens. Probably the child calls the police, or something happens in the house that draws the attention of the forcemen. In the long run, decide to take the children from the parents. That's physically taking the children of the parents. But then we have also seen cases where children are still with the parents, but are not psychologically present with their parents. Parents don't even realize that at this point, these children have no connection with them whatsoever.
And you know, one of the reasons why this happens is because usually when people relocate to a new environment, they have to really look for work, and sometimes they get jobs, not high jobs at the lowest round of the ladder. So that means sometimes, like I said earlier on, they work for so long for so little. So some people find a way around it by ensuring that while they are working during the day, their spouse is working through the night. So at that way, you always have an adult present with the children. Because if you don't put that into priority, things can go out of hand so quickly. So you don't want to find yourself in that kind of a situation. And that's one key point.
Pay attention
to your children. Because you don't want to make all that sacrifices, and at the end of the day, your children are nowhere to be found. You know, they have become completely different personalities, and you're asking yourself, was it worth it? I was doing this for them. Was it worth it after all?
Research has shown that a lot of the people who end up in prisons, especially with the male gender, children who their parents were often out working long hours. Okay, so in cases like this, I think it calls for parents to look into their routine, look into their schedule. What can we do? How can we? I mean, it's like you both strategizing.
Absolutely.
How can we be available for these children? Okay, and that's you being physically available for them. But there's the bit to do with emotionally being present with the children, being available to your children. It doesn't matter. You say, oh, okay, some parents will be there. Like, I'll give an instance. This is by no means us putting down anyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, but where one parent goes to work at night and the other in the daytime, the other works in the daytime, you find that the one who works at night is supposed to return and spend time with the children and be there with the children, at least as an adult present. But what you find is that one spends time trying to find him or herself. Because I mean, you've been up all night. Okay, so in a case like that, you need to make out time some days in the week where you truly spend time with your children, connect with them, know what's happening with them. Okay, what influences they are being exposed to out there, and see what you can correct on time.
Absolutely. Who are they listening to? I remember I watched one video on Facebook some time ago, and they were talking to this drug dealer, and he was saying something. They asked him, what kind of children do you people go after? Because what he was doing was recruiting children that were in high school, secondary school, like some people call it. And he said they always go for children whose parents are not available, maybe single dad, single mom, you know, those are the kind of people, vulnerable children whose parents are not available. Those are the children that they try to recruit. And these children are the children they now begin to use, you know, give drugs to sell in schools. So we have seen a lot of different things. So we're trying to prepare a video, do a video that will be able to, you know, let you know these things, you know, so you can proactively protect your family.
Yes. Okay. And the next tip we'll be sharing, I mean, this is not an exhaustive list.
Absolutely.
We'll be having a second part to this, a follow-up, because we have decided to have two parts of it, so we can deal with each topic. Okay. And the next one is prepare a financial plan. Very critical.
Very important.
You're moving to a new family, to a new country, beg your pardon. You will need a lot of money. You will need a lot of money. And sometimes when people underestimate how much they truly need.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You know, what we often say, usually when people want to move like this, they will often make plans, they make budget, they may ask one or two people they know in the country. But I always like to say something. Whatever you are planning, double it or triple it. And it might sound like, the reason why is this. Most times when you are moving into a new country, there's a law that is called Murphy's Law. It says everything that will go wrong. You might have worked out all your plans, strategized, done everything, but what happens if you don't get a job within the first 6 months? What happens to your family? What happens if you still have to pay rent, expenses, you still have to eat, you still have to pay electricity? There are constant costs that you have to keep to maintain a certain level of standard of living. And as an immigrant, someone who's coming to a new environment, most times you don't have access to public fund. So is the fund your own personal finance, your own personal family economy is what you are going to be depending on to sustain you. So what happens if you don't have a job? You know, what happens if you move to a country, most developed country, you can't just come in and start working immediately. You need to get, for example, in the United Kingdom, you need to go, it's called national insurance. And I don't know how long that takes to get. All right, so there are specific things you need to prepare yourself. The other point of financial is that sometimes when people come to a new environment, and then especially when they have not been used to a credit card in where they are coming from, and they're like, wow, this is free money. The reason why they may be relying on credit card is because, usually they are running out of cash, so they need to be able to get money anyway just to be able to put food on the table for their children. But we always try to tell them something. That is not free money. You need to be conscious about how you use it, especially for consumer debts. Because sometimes you might be relieving you in the meantime, but over a long period of time, you find out that you've accumulated so much debt that you are wondering, how did I get here? We've heard stories of people who, had credit card and they were just spending and it was relieving them in the present. By the time they saw the interest rates, and this developed country is such that the economy or the system does not forgive because it's built on trust. All right, exactly. They expect you to do your own part. And once you don't make payments, when you're supposed to make payment, what we call your credit rating is impacted. What does that mean? It means that if you don't have very positive or green credit rates, all right, credit rating, what happens? You are unable to apply for mortgage. You are unable to get access to some very good resources when you eventually become private citizen or something. So you need to take this very seriously in terms of your credit rating. Be careful the credit card you get, and be careful how you go about spending.
Even access to loans.
Very important. Yep, that's one thing we'd like to point out on this point.
All right. So the 4 tips we've shared in this video are the first one. Clarify your purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
Clarify your purpose. And we touched on, it's not just enough to clarify your purpose, you need to communicate it from time to time. And then prioritize your marriage.
Absolutely.
Okay. 3, pay attention to your children.
Yep.
And then 4, prepare a financial plan.
Yep.
All right. So until we come your way again with the second part of this video, it's goodbye from us.
All right. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with people who are making plans to relocate. This will be of help to them. Bye-bye.